Yeah, you and I think both are on PBS, and that's what I say in my PBS special. Now, here's another thing that you and I both agree on, that we need to reduce the consumption of animal proteins. I've written about this, and everybody can't believe it. You've been one of the original proponents of reducing animal protein. Why is that so important?
There's numerous reasons. One reason is that when you go over a certain level of animal protein, you push up IGF-1 into an abnormally high range. And IGF-1 has growth promotion effects that enhances cellular replication, that can allow cancer cells to replicate. And it also is angiogenesis promoting, which can allow cancer cells to glean their own blood supply and replicate. Lower levels are healthier, but if you're too low as you age, could also be unhealthy. There's a narrow range of IGF-1 that's ideal. So tweaking that to the perfect level is an important aspect. The other aspect is too much animal protein can also increase the production of TMAO. Trimethylamine oxide could go too high. And when your trimethylamine oxide goes over a certain level, it becomes an inflammatory modulator of it inflames the endothelium and promotes atherosclerosis. So there's a few reasons why. You also build more gram-negative bacteria in the gut. And when you have more animal protein and animal fat, you also get more insulin resistance, so then you have a higher response to a carbohydrate. You have all these keto and paleo people eating a lot of animal protein and animal fat, and they say, see, when I eat a mango or some oatmeal, my sugars go through the roof. I got to stay on animal products. But the reason their sugars go through the roof on those foods is because they've distorted the shape of their insulin receptors, which too much animal foods and saturated fat. And now when they eat those foods, they get an excessive response because they're not going to be insulin resistant. And it also makes it harder to lose weight. So yes, and you know what? Also, the Seventh-day Adventist 2 study was very clear, and we give more credence to studies that follow people for decades and look at hard endpoints like death. And what they found is that more plant protein in the diet made for longer lifespan, and more animal protein in the diet made from shorter lifespans. Even when people went up to relatively small amounts, like went up from 10 to 20%, you still saw more deaths. So what I'm saying right now is that eating a diet that's richer in plant protein with hemp seeds, green vegetables, soybeans, other beans, nuts, pine nuts, all these things that we find that as quinoa, as plant, that we want protein adequacy. But we want more of the protein to come from plants because plant protein is not as biologically complete. And when it's not as biologically complete, the body can turn it into growth hormone and IGF-1 more slowly because it completes it by matching amino acids from the interstitial, there's an interstitial, storage of amino acids that if the body can take, it can balance amino acids from. And it can also add more amino acids by bringing some bacteria, digesting the bacteria or sloughed up epithelial cells. But the body doesn't complete protein to make growth hormone excessively unless it needs it. When you take an animal protein, because it's not efficiently burned as calories or stored as fat as efficiently as carbohydrate, or fat, it's not stored as efficiently as fat, the body will more readily turn the extra protein calories into growth hormone or produce more nitrogenous waste like urea, uric acid, and ammonia. So you have more inflammatory wastes, more urea, uric acid, ammonia, more production of hormone, more production of inflammatory substances. So we're trying to reduce animal protein.
So you've recently moved to the San Diego area, and there's another physician down there, Dr. Paul Saladino, who is one of the biggest proponents of the carnivore diet. And you probably don't spend a lot of time together yet. The carnivore diet folks are saying, well, look at the weight loss that everybody's having. They're avoiding those mischievous substances called lectins that you and I should talk about sometime, and maybe today. So what do you say to the carnivore diet folks?
I think it's really sad that people are getting such dangerous and erroneous information, because you can look at a short-term study to come up with a hypothesis. My short-term study might feed people nothing but Twinkies, just Twinkies, nothing else. They'll get sick of eating Twinkies. They'll reduce their calories. They'll lose weight. Or I can give them just white rice to eat, and they'll lose weight. Their blood pressure will go down. That doesn't make that a longevity-promoting diet because their blood pressure went down. They lost weight. Give them just meat. Put them into chronic ketosis. They lose weight. Their triglycerides improve. Their diabetes is going away. That makes you come up with a hypothesis that has to be confirmed with large epidemiologic trials that look at hard endpoints. And then it's when the hard endpoint studies, a hard endpoint is not like your triglycerides went down or your glucose went better. It means that you actually live longer. I can give you a cholesterol-lowering drug that things look better in the short run, but until I see hundreds of thousands of people on that drug for decades and I see longer lifespan, I'm not convinced that there's some trade-off that may be hurting your lifespan with that drug. We don't know that yet. What I'm saying is that people can be tricked into anything, can be fooled into these wrong, erroneous notions because they're not trying to make sure they're matching the short-term soft endpoint studies with the long-term hard endpoint studies that are talking about death. And we know that every study that had large numbers of people that went on for decades and looked at animal protein intake or meat intake, that the more meat they ate, the younger they died, and the more cardiovascular deaths they had, and the more cancer deaths they had. It's dangerous information. The person is appealing to people's love affair with these illicit foods like meat and lamb. I love lamb chops too. I would love to be told barbecued ribs and lamb chops are great for you, but unfortunately, they're not. And we have to have reality here and go with the overwhelming evidence. So I think though that person should be, there has to, I hate to be bad-mouthing people, but it's dangerous to follow the advice of a person like that. I even ordered his book, and I even saw all the nonsense in that book and how he only showed the short-term studies and didn't include any of the data that showed what he's saying is wrong. And I thought it really was, not a good thing to do for people.